I am Ray, and today we are going to use spirituality to end police brutality. Or at the very least, avoid getting your own ass beat. Send this to a homie or a brother, any minority and or poor person trying to escape the hood. I will show you the way, my friend. Let us begin. It all begins with energy, and there exists a spectrum between heaven and hell. You could say positivity and negativity. This is the quality of energy. And what is energy? Energy is frequency and vibration. So you could say the highest frequency is heaven and the lowest frequency is hell. Now you don't need to be religious to understand these things, because many people are already living in hell. Suffering, struggle, pain. Trust me, you don't need me to tell you what this is like. And maybe, if we're lucky, we get a glimpse of heaven. That is peace, love, joy, abundance. So have you ever wondered why some people just seem to get a raw deal? They spend their whole life struggling and suffering in poverty, in violence, and why some people seem to have it all. Well, now you will understand why, my friend. You see, energy is the force of life, and our mind is a tool that directs the flow of energy. You could say hell is death, eternal death, and heaven is eternal life. So our mind directs the flow of energy, and we can direct our mind in 3 ways. Lucky for us, not too complicated. We can direct our mind in a negative way, in a neutral way, or a positive way. When we direct our mind in a negative way, that is what religion calls sin. And when we direct our mind in a positive way, that is what they call virtue. The mind is like a pointed tool, and to sin means to miss the mark. And so whenever you direct your attention in a negative way, you have a net negative of energy, and you move lower on this spectrum. And when you focus your mind in a positive way, you gain overall energy, and you move up on this spectrum. And you see, we all have this energetic vibration. Doesn't matter what you want to call it. This guy has a funny vibration. And your vibration is determined by how often you focus on negative things or on positive things. And so all anybody in this world has to do in order to experience a life of heaven. And I know this because I've been here. I'm not from the hood, clearly. But it doesn't matter. We all know what suffering is like. And people at the bottom, they often feel like things are hopeless. Like the system is out to get them. Like they just got a raw deal. And that they will never escape. But I'm telling you right now, anybody can escape simply by step, raising your overall frequency, by changing the things you focus your attention on. And you have complete power to focus on whatever you want. Now, when it comes to police, here is the issue. Imagine a little baby born in the hood, a baby boy to be exact, and that boy has brothers and a father figure, maybe. And because they are more experienced in this world, they operate from this belief that, well, cops are out to get us. You can be black, you can be Mexican. And so as a survival mechanism, the adults in the child's life, they have an automatic fear response when it comes to police officers because of the belief they hold that they are at high risk for getting killed by a police officer. And what does this do? Whenever they experience an officer of the law, they get sent into fight or flight, a fear response, which means that they're ready to kill and they're ready to run away. And subliminally, or not so subtly, they send out negative energy toward the cop. And they put the cop into survival. Because they too have to worry about getting killed. We'll get to this in a moment. But the point is, we must look at this from a biological perspective. So 2 big animals getting ready to kill and fight each other. Even if you don't say anything to them, and they don't say anything to you, both are exchanging negative energy, hostility toward one another because of their beliefs. And then what happens? Because we're not only worried about our own survival, We're worried about the survival of our offspring. In order to keep the offspring alive, we indoctrinate them into the same fear-based beliefs. But they don't know what's going on. They just trust the authority figures in their life. And then imagine one day a family member is killed by a cop. Now the boy has permanent trauma and a deep-seated hatred toward cops. So every time they interact with a cop, it is a negative experience. And it continues to get more and more negative experiences, and there are only two outcomes: death or jail. All that trauma is negative memory stored in our body. The unconscious mind is the intelligence of our body, and it speaks the language of feelings. And our conscious mind is the person we believe ourselves to be, and it speaks the language of patterns. But we'll just say for this, information. And so what happens? The information or the pattern in this experience is cop, and the feeling is negative. And so every time you are exposed to this pattern, your body naturally evokes a survival fear response, sending you into fight or flight and increasing the probability of being killed. Because, well, fight or flight, you're either running away, cops don't like that very much, or you're fighting them, cops don't like that very much. And the problem is your unconscious will hijack your attention because our body's main function is survival. So it has to get you to act before thinking, because by the time you think about what's going on, you're already dead. Now, there's a formula for how we create our reality. Be, behave, have. Who we are influences us to behave in certain ways, and the way we behave causes us to have certain things. So when you look at your life right now, what you have, it is simply because of our past actions. And the way we've acted is because of who we are, both unconsciously and consciously. So we have an unconscious identity, who our body believes we are, and we have a conscious identity of who we believe we are. And what happens is that every time we experience a strong feeling, our body takes a snapshot of whatever information and what kind of feeling was experienced. And so if something evokes a negative feeling, that is very important for our survival. So our body needs to remember it. The only problem is that if we have trauma around this, we have a negative relationship with cops. Obviously. Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But what happens is because there's a negative relationship with this, a negative identity associated with this, it causes us to act in certain ways that are negative, which result in a negative outcome always. And when you're continuously feeding negativity in this way, your situation gets worse and worse and worse until what is left? Death or life in prison. Because energy is the force of life. And the more we ruminate on negativity, negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative beliefs, the more our energy is being hemorrhaged. It's being lost. And where life is not, death is. So our experience in reality gets worse, more and more suffering, until the eventual end, that is death. But all we have to do to avoid this tragedy, which thousands and thousands of people are experiencing every day, every week, every month, whether it's this, whether it's poverty, whether it's gang violence, it doesn't matter. Tragedy and death result from being in a low frequency state. And a low frequency state is a result of continuously focusing your attention on negativity. And the reason that we focus on negativity is because we have trauma stored in the body that hijacks our attention and causes a fear response, fight or flight. And because we have this negative unconscious identity, we behave in ways that evoke certain responses. And the further down we go, the worse the responses get, the worse life we have, and the more hell we experience. So the first step is to take your power back, because people are always giving their power away to forces outside of their control. We only have control over two things in this life, and that is a very good thing. We have control over our conscious thoughts, and we have control over our conscious actions. Nothing else. And so the more you focus on anything other than these two things, the more you're wasting your time. The more you're giving your power away. And so, well, it all begins with realizing that you have the power to change. That you're not a slave to your circumstances. That you're not a victim. Because if you blame the system, the police, the world, God, doesn't matter. You freely give your power away and stay stuck. There's nothing you can do about it. But the moment you take your power back, you can change your life. You are not a slave to fate. But as Carl Jung said, if you do not make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. We have to realize that we are responsible for our own life and take our attention away from everything else. Because a good rule of thumb is that we create more of what we focus on. So, if you're focusing on police brutality, I get that it's good to raise awareness, but that is part of the problem. The more people talk about this kind of thing, the worse it gets. Why? Because when you go on social media, when you go on the news, you see some kind of thing that bothers you, some act of injustice, and it makes you very angry. And it begins cultivating a fire of hatred. And you have every right to feel angry, to feel hate. But there's a big difference between being angry and being hateful versus acting on that hatred. And you see, life is perfectly balanced between negativity and positivity. There's always going to be suffering. There's always going to be negativity. It's not about what you think is true. It's about what you choose to focus on. I'm not saying just ignore reality. I'm saying don't allow the negativity to ruin your life. Because the more you ruminate upon it, the deeper down you go into suffering, into hell. And if you pay attention, you will realize this for yourself. What will happen is that if you hate cops, you will continuously getting yourself into situations that reinforce that belief. You attract those negative situations because you cannot separate your mind from the reality that you experience. So whatever information is in here and stored in your body, reality is getting filtered through this information and being projected out onto the world. And that is what we experience. So we do not see reality as it is. We see reality as we are. We have the power to shape reality in whatever way we want. But unless you take your power back, you will feel like a slave. You have the power to believe in whatever you want. Let's look at it this way. Let's take a certain pattern. Let's take money, for instance. If consciously or unconsciously we feel negative about money, if that is the unconscious identity, then we will have a negative relationship with money. And think about how your experience is with a friend versus with somebody you hate. If you have a positive relationship with somebody, does it take any effort to be around them? But if you hate somebody, you are naturally repulsed by them. You feel negatively about them and you don't want to be around them. Same thing happens with everything. And so those who have a negative relationship with money, a negative conscious or unconscious identity, they will behave in ways that create scarcity and lack effortlessly. No matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you struggle, you will always return to the default. Let's take police, for example. If you have a negative relationship with the po-po, you will behave in ways that are negative, that reinforce that negative relationship. And you will say, oh, I knew it. I knew I was right. This just confirmed my beliefs. But in truth, you were unconsciously creating that situation in your life. But imagine somebody who has only ever had positive relationships, positive experiences with the police. Even if there is an occasionally negative experience, it will never be life or death. It will never be that much of a problem because they're behaving in a way that evokes a certain response that is positive. The same thing with people in general. The more positive experiences you've had with people, the better you feel about them. And the more you reinforce a reality in which you have positive relationships with everybody. Doesn't mean that negative people won't enter your life. It means that you won't even pay attention to them. They won't bother you or affect you at all. But if you have had negative experiences with people, You see this all the time. You can tell when somebody's looking for a fight. They want it. They give off hostile energy that causes a hostile response in general. So what has to happen? Well, it depends. The first thing I would suggest is taking your power back and becoming aware of what you choose to focus on. Because your frequency is what you frequently see. So if life appears negative, you're in a low frequency state, which means that you will lack clarity. You will not be able to see the light, which is why most people stay stuck in these negative states. But the moment you begin rising up, the pathway forward becomes clear and obvious. The journey unfolds and the path reveals itself. You just have to survive long enough to get out of this low, dense, negative state of being. What does this mean? Through your awareness, you recognize every time you begin ruminating on negative thoughts. Doesn't matter about what it is. It might be about your situation. It might be about your relationships. It might be about money. Pay attention, because in this moment you are creating a negative life for yourself. It's okay to have negative thoughts and negative feelings. The question is, do you want to continue ruminating upon them? Because the more you ruminate upon them, the more you reinforce the negative reality. Why? Because negative thoughts create negative feelings, and the body speaks the language of feelings. So in this moment, you are programming your unconscious mind, which will eventually result in a negative life. And to be honest, one of the best ways to be free from this is God. Because at the end of the day, if you can cultivate enough trust and faith, you can give it to God. Because at the end of the day, God can solve all your problems like that. But God will not do that, because it is up to you to take your power back. God will guide you every step of the way out of your hellish circumstances. But God will not just take your problems away, because that would make you weak. And so in those moments where those negative thoughts come up, where you're feeling really hateful or angry or resentful, turn your attention toward God. And you probably won't feel like it at first, but you can kind of just say, God, I'm scared I'm going to do some bad things. You better stop me, because I don't know if I can stop myself. Just continue cultivating a relationship with God, because those who look at the world do not see God, and those who look at God do not see the world. The more you're caught in your circumstances, when you're living through your senses, you see negativity and chaos all around you. You can't help but focusing on all that negativity. And because that's what you're focusing on, that is what you are creating more of. So you have to kind of close your eyes and turn toward God, turn toward your desired reality. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult to escape. In other words, focus on what you want. Don't focus on what you don't want. That will determine how successful you are. And it's all a habit. You'd be surprised how focused people can get when they put their mind to something. The more focus you get to taking control of your mind, and the more focus you get about taking control over your attention, the quicker you can escape and live any life that you want, even if it doesn't seem like it. But as they say, through God, all things are possible. The way to become a high-frequency person. First, as we discussed, you take your power back, become aware of the ways you are ruminating on negativity. And you can either give it to God or go and do something else. Don't just sit there and allow the negative thoughts and feelings to fester. Because any thought you hold in your mind for long enough will be made manifest in the world. So the more you think about, oh, I hate this person, you get more angry, you get more resentment, and then what do? You go and find them. Do bad things. So you can't allow those negative thoughts to snowball out of control. First things first, get away from negative people. You don't gotta ghost everybody. Focus on yourself. Do the monk mode. Get your own stuff together. Because the people around you are like crabs in a bucket. They do not want you to escape. They would rather keep you stuck than to see you free. And you will see that the moment you start trying to improve your life, they will start judging you. Not always. Find the good people. Find the people you want to take with you. There's always like one or two maybe. Be free together. Because if you can find somebody else who wants to be on the same path as you, who wants to escape the hell. You can escape far more quickly together. So stop hanging around people who you don't want to be. If they're living a life that you want to escape, then there's no choice. You must leave. 2, it's an easy one. Exercise. Exercise first thing in the morning. Get yourself in a positive mood for the day. And that positivity can snowball into the rest of your day. Whereas if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, now somebody pisses you off. Now you react. And you ruin your life in a single moment because you acted on a temporary emotional state. Remember all that we're doing, what it even means to be high frequency in the first place. Because it sounds like a weird idea. All it means is that we begin focusing our energy in a positive direction. That is all. And you know when something is positive when it makes you feel good. And you know when something is negative when it makes you feel more like hell. Exercise. Quit the drugs. Quit the alcohol. That will get you stuck for years and years and years. You don't have to do it all at once, but it's a non-negotiable. Because these things will always keep you stuck in a negative state of being. Begin reading. Go to the library. Read biographies of other people who are like you, who have been successful. Read about the future you want, the future you'd like. Learn. Develop skills. Skills pay the bills. The more you learn, the more you earn. And knowledge is power. Because with certain knowledge, you can learn how to escape anything, escape any life, escape any negative situation. Because, well, most of our suffering comes because of our ignorance of how not to escape. We don't know how to deal with our life. And so reading helps with that. Listen to talks about God. Read the Bible. Or whatever spiritual text tickles your fancy. God, you could say, is the highest vibration, heaven. God will help you get through anything. And look, there's going to come a time in your life where the old habits, the old ways of being, they're going to pop back up. And in that moment, you have to stay strong. You have to make a decision. You have to act quickly. Go and do some push-ups. Get into a high state of being. Not high like weed. But you need that clarity to make the right decisions. When you're in a negative state of being, you're going to act negatively. And exercise is the quickest way to raise your state of being. 100 burpees. Let's go. And this is all a process. Be patient with yourself. But here's the thing. The moment your mind is pointed in the right direction, it doesn't matter how slow you go. You've already made it to your destination. You just have to keep going. But if your mind is pointed in the wrong direction, it doesn't matter how fast you go. You're never going to make it to the life you truly desire. In fact, if your mind is pointed in the wrong direction, slow down. The next thing might seem a little funny, but we need to reprogram our unconscious mind because that negative trauma is going to wreak havoc in our life. And this is a simple way to quickly change your life. So, let's say you have a negative relationship with money because you've had negative experiences of being in poverty. So your unconscious mind believes you to be living in a reality that is of lack and scarcity. And until you reprogram your unconscious mind, you will always be fighting against yourself. Fighting an uphill battle. So all one has to do, change the feeling associated with a specific pattern. And you will create abundance in your life effortlessly. You will be able to make money effortlessly. Think about the unconscious like a horse. And think about the conscious like you riding on top of the horse. If the horse is fighting you, if the horse is going against you, you're going to be struggling. But once you and the horse are riding in the same direction, it's effortless. So consciously, you're trying to make that money. But unconsciously, you're stuck in poverty. So your unconscious is pulling you back toward poverty all the time. And here you are as the conscious trying to escape. But the unconscious mind has been evolving for millions and millions of years. The conscious mind is not as powerful. Who wins at the end of the day, the horse or the horse rider? The horse is a powerful beast, but what the person has is intelligence. We have to train the body to be as we want it to be. So when it comes to money, every time you have an experience with money, you come into contact with money, whether you're spending it, whether you're receiving it, or whether you're giving it, take a moment to appreciate it, to cultivate feelings of gratitude. Every time when you buy groceries, stop and smile and say, wow, I get to eat again today. I don't have to starve. I might not know what I'm going to eat tomorrow, but tomorrow will take care of itself. And if you believe it, it will be true. But the more you ruminate on negativity and worry and frustration and anger, the more you will reinforce a negative reality for yourself. Because for you, money is a problem in your life. And so you'll spend your whole life trying to get money because you'll think it solves all your problems. When all you have to do is change your feelings about it, and money will effortlessly enter into your life in all the right ways. But what happens if you have a negative relationship with money? You might try and make money in the wrong ways that create a whole lot of baggage for you in the future, a whole lot of negativity. This is why we become aware of our tendency to ruminate on negative thoughts. If you have $1 or 10 or 100, you can even look at it and smile. Just smile and say, thank you, I love you. Even though it seems silly, you have to cultivate positive feelings about it. And you can see for yourself the changes in your life when you start to do this. I even put a $100 bill as my screensaver. So every time I looked at my phone, exposed to the pattern. And you can say things like, I love being rich. I love receiving money. I love giving money. And day by day, step by step, you start feeling better about it. And that is how you reprogram your unconscious mind to be positive. And you will see randomly, synchronicities, weird things happen where money just enters into your life effortlessly. I don't have to do anything. I spent all this time working hard and grinding and struggling, and suddenly it's just there all the time. Wow, I didn't realize life was this easy. But it is because when we're in a low frequency state, when we're in a negative state of being, life is a never-ending struggle. And as you rise up, life becomes easier and easier and easier. I like the practice called Ho'oponopono, which is an ancient Hawaiian practice to restore balance and harmony into your life. Essentially, one of the foundational pillars is that everything that we experience is nothing but a reflection of us. So when we heal in us the problem, the imbalance, the negative memory, the trauma, the outer reality begins reflecting that change. So we don't have to go out into the world and try to fix our problems. We don't have to go out into the world and try to change things. All we have to do is change and heal ourselves. You see, this side of the equation is the slave side. People want things, and so they work to get it. And if they want more, they have to work more. But if, with money for instance, your relationship is negative, no matter how hard you try, you'll always return to zero. No matter how hard you struggle. But the moment that you focus on the free side, you focus on your state of being, these two things take care of itself. And Ho'oponopono is a practice to heal the negative trauma. And the thing is, many races, they have their own unique generational trauma passed down. And so that trauma will get passed down to you, and if you don't figure it out, you'll pass it down to the next generation, and on and on and on and on. But here is how you stop it in its tracks and be free. This practice is simply repeating the 4 affirmations. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. The more you repeat these 4 affirmations, you'll be surprised how quickly your life will change. Because these are probably the 4 most powerful affirmations that exist. The 4 most positive thoughts you can have. I'm sorry is the moment of change. I'm sorry for not dealing with this trauma sooner. I'm sorry for allowing this negativity in my life. I'm sorry for ruminating on negative thoughts. And you can say this to God, which is one of the most powerful ways to pray. Or you can simply say it to yourself. Please forgive me for holding on to this negative memory, for holding on to these negative attachments that are ruining my life. Thank you. Thank you for cleansing me of these negative attachments. Thank you for cleansing me of these negative thoughts. I love you. You connect to the divine. And when you direct this into yourself, you develop a positive relationship with yourself. I love you. And you can say this with everything. That is why, well, for money, you say thank you, I love you. Thank you, I love you. This is like the positive side. This is where you want to cleanse the negative things. So, for instance, whenever you see a police officer, you see the negative thoughts begin festering. Maybe a bit of anger. Maybe you think of the past, something bad that happened. The negative memory will arise, evoking negative feelings. And in that moment, you gotta be aware. Don't allow the negativity to snowball out of control. But repeat these 4 phrases. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for holding on to this hatred, this negativity. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Repeat it over and over again. And you don't have to give explanations. You can just say the words, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And get obsessive about it. Get OCD about it. Focus. Because when you fill your mind with positive thoughts, you don't allow negative ones to snowball out of control. You create a healthy environment in your mind, and automatically the environment around you becomes healthy. Before you know it, you're moving out of the negative environment. Negative people will begin falling away from your life because they're no longer aligned with your new energy. And what this practice does, it's designed to cleanse negative memory. So we have a negative relationship with this because of trauma. We cleanse it. The negative trauma goes away. The relationship gets neutralized. We no longer struggle with problems in this area. Same thing for money. Same thing with people. It's easy to get annoyed by people and want to attack them. But if you can stop yourself and slow down, repeat these affirmations. You don't have to say it out loud. They don't ever have to know. But that will heal the resentments you have toward them. And when that resentment is healed, the problem is healed. Because it takes 2 people to fight. And as Christ said, love your enemies. Because when you love your enemies, you have no enemies. God will protect you, will keep you safe, so long as you don't allow the negativity in, the fear, the shame, the guilt, the anger, the resentment. It's okay to have these feelings, but you don't want to keep them around for long. You want to learn to sit with yourself and not be so reactive. One of the best keys I can give for you is to slow down. Stop living so fast and learn to sit with yourself. And what this means is that when you feel anger, feel the anger. Don't just go and do something about it. Because we're always trying to escape difficult feelings. We're always trying to escape difficult thoughts, which is why people do drugs and alcohol. But the more you learn to sit with these things, the more they stop ruining your life. And you can heal. And when you heal, you don't have all this baggage keeping you stuck in low, negative states of being. Every time you experience anything negative in your life, whether a negative thought, whether something negative in the world, repeat these things. It will always keep your mind focused on what is good. Because remember, the universe is perfectly balanced. And you can use this practice also to remember God. And you will see your life change before you know it. Because God, because Christ, is like a hand reaching down from heaven that wants to pull you up, but you have to reach for it. And the devil is also pulling at your feet. As the story goes, there once was a Native American chief telling a story to a youngster. And he said, "See here, we all have 2 wolves within us, a dark wolf and a light wolf, and they are at war with each other." And the youngster said, "Well, which one wins?" And the chief said, "The one you feed." I am Ray. Visit my cool store. Much peace and many blessings. And remember, just be.